Welcome to another episode of the Scale Your Real Estate Podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We got Sam Wegert, your host here, and I'm so excited for this guest, Roberto Green. Roberto is going to bring us some cash flow hacks. He's going to show you how he's using micro properties. That's just a word I made up. It's not really micro properties, but these very, very, very cheap properties in really unique markets, and how he's getting 2.5% and even 3%. He's hitting that 3% rule, which means he's renting them out for 2 to 3% of the purchase price, of the all-in price every month, which is crazy, unheard of. Even Brandon Turner not too long ago told me the 1% rule is dead. He's doubling and tripling that, but he's willing to take on a little additional risk to do that. And so he will explain that in this episode. We're going to talk about negotiating deals. He's going to dive into wholesale in a little bit. I'm just so excited. This guy is genuine. He gets his stuff, and he's willing to be there and support you guys on your journey to financial independence. So enjoy this episode, and I hope you love it. Please share it with somebody that you think would after you listen to it. Tell me about the project in Costa Rica.
Puerto Rico. So from start to finish, or you want the whole?
I'm just curious. I'm just personally curious about it. You're buying something there, or working on something, or?
Yeah. So it was actually a project that I've been working on for over a year.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the owner originally he wanted it for $350. I found it off Craigslist. So yeah, it's kind of weird. So I went on Craigslist. We were looking for properties, and I ended up finding this guy who wanted to sell the house for $350. So I went to go look at it, and I honestly fell in love with the view more than anything. So it's literally like 25 minutes away from the airport.
Wait, do you have an address?
Do I have a what?
Do you have an address? Like, are there pictures online?
No, online you can't see it. I actually had to get coordinates to get the actual address because Puerto Rico is different.
Okay, got it.
But I can send you photos so you could see it at least.
I'd love to, dude. I'd love to.
So yeah, so I got it. So I ended up talking to the owner. He wanted $350. My first play with that was negotiating it down. I brought him down to $275. So the first play that I tried to do with that one was to actually try to get a second home loan. So the thing with that is that for me to get a second home loan on that property, it needed to get rehabbed. So the bank wouldn't fund it. So then that basically knocked that idea off. Then I was like, okay, if I can't get it funded through the bank, then I'm going to have to raise capital. So I literally put together like a whole investor packet because I saw the potential and the opportunity through Airbnb. So I created a whole packet and put it together, started pitching the idea, and a couple people bought into it, but they wanted to be equity partners, not private lenders. Well, I ended up taking equity partners on the deal. So I ended up raising just a little bit over $250,000 on the deal because I ended up negotiating the price down again with the homeowner. He sold it to me for $200,000.
Original asking was $350, and you got it for $200.
Literally, I pulled every trick in the book, just building that relationship.
We're gonna dive into that because we're recording, so we're gonna talk about that. How did you get? I want to know. Like, I want you to break it down for me, Barney style. How you got a $350,000 house for $200K? Like, give me and I'm not even asking this for the listeners at this point. I'm asking this for me. I want you to give me your tricks, give me your tips. What did you do? What did you say? I'm just going to be like scripting all this out, Roberto.
So in Puerto Rico, things work a little different, right? So everybody can ask what they want, but at the end of the day, it's the numbers that don't lie. So literally what happened was when I went to the bank to get the appraisal, since Puerto Rico doesn't really have like MLS, like as standard and proper as we have it in the US, we don't have these comparables that you can run like a prop stream or like a CMA report as fancy as we do it here in the US, right? So literally they have their own appraisers. The bank have their own appraisers that go and basically get appraisals based off what has sold in the past couple months, couple years, whatever data that they can find. So the data that they were able to pull was a CMA of $180,000 for that house. Mind you, it's a 2-unit, 7-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2,000 square foot property with a pool, and it sits on almost 2 acres of land.
And you can see the ocean?
And you can see the ocean. It's that high up in altitude. You can see the mountains. You can see the city. You can see Diego's condo. And you can see the ocean. It's insane. You can see 5 different cities.
So I hope what listeners are taking away from this is that there's real estate in other places that is for a lot cheaper than we have real estate here. Okay, continue. Yeah. This is good. I'm listening.
You can find a studio here in Boston for 200 something.
Oh my God, I know.
So literally, what I had to do was basically negotiate the guy down. You know, I first listened to his motive. You know, why was he selling? He's an older guy. He already, lived his life. He's in the position where he wants to basically liquidate his assets and just finish, living his life as happily as he can, right? He lives in Orlando and he has a couple kids, but he doesn't really want to, they're not interested in the properties. So to him, handing it down or passing it down to them, it was not necessary. So basically, I got that out of him, got all the information out of him, understood what his motives were. He wanted to sell to basically buy a horse in Colombia. Super random.
Same price, probably.
Yes. Perfect. That's great. Let's get you a horse. I can close. I can close in a couple months. Just give me some time, But I told him, if you want it quickly, I can get you $200,000 now. So I played that card, as far as trying to expedite the process and telling him, if you want cash, I can get $200,000 and sell it to you and buy it to you right now. So it did take him some time.
And I just want to stop for a second. I mean, probably part of the reason you did that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is because you felt like speed was important to him more than him just being like, I could sit on this thing for 10 years as long as I get 400,000 for it. You were like, no, you knew there was another motive there. You must have uncovered that in your conversation. So you were trying to give him what he really wanted. Is that
correct? That's exactly it. Plus, he was just in a position where he just wanted to get rid of it, but he also saw me and my persistence. I've been with him for a year. Like he even invited me to his house. I met his wife. He showed me his cars. Like he felt comfortable around me, and that was a relationship that I wanted to build. And I told him, like, look, I'm serious. I really want this home. Like this is a property that I see and that I want. And he saw that. So it wasn't just like, well, I'm gonna sell it to you because you're paying me cash. It was also because like I had built and established a relationship with him, to the point where he's like, he's like, I trust you. I know you're going to do a great job with this property, and you're going to appreciate it more than anybody else who would come in and just buy it, right?
That's cool.
So that was the relationship aspect that I had built on it as well. So then, long story short, I ended up raising the capital, just over $250,000, because it needed about $85,000 in repairs, which was also a negotiation point. I told them the electrical needed work, plumbing needed work, it needed new tiles, new lighting, basically a nice little renovation, right? And I told him that renovation costs have gone up, and he knows these prices. So I told him it's going to cost me anywhere between $80,000 to $100,000 just to renovate it and get it ready for me. And he saw that with the bank, because even the banks, they gave a list of everything that house needed before they would even approve it for me to get second home loan. So he understood. So those were like the different factors and variables that played into the negotiation strategy of bringing it down from 350 all the way down to 200,000. And that was literally 1 year of negotiation and relationship building, and just finding different ways to really, really get it as low as possible.
So patience is key here too. So you've been going back and forth with this guy for a year.
Yeah, I've flown out there so many times. I mean, I'm not complaining because I don't mind flying to Puerto Rico.
Right.
But I did fly out there a lot, just to review the property, get data, build the relationships with the contractors, really understanding what needed to be done in the house to get renovated, to be ready for at least a cash out refinance, which is the new strategy that I'm going to be using now.
So you built what I'm hearing is you built a relationship. You deployed a tremendous amount of patience, You weren't afraid to ask as well. You were persistent. You kept going back after it. And at the same time, you knew your numbers. You knew what it would appraise for. You really went down and did that. And then I like what you said at the beginning, man. You find and listen to their motive. Like, what are they actually really after in this situation, in this deal? I love that. So what advice would you have for somebody maybe in the American market, the United States market, who is looking to buy properties and looking to buy them either off market or on market? And just what general advice would you have for someone who's just looking to be a better negotiator? Because I don't know about you, Roberto, but I know these people who are just like, they get so emotionally tied up in deals that they just would almost pay anything for it. And I'm like, no. Like, you could probably get 40 grand off if you just asked, but they literally don't think to ask. Curious what your advice is for someone on that.
No, I mean, in particular, like in the Latin culture, I know that it's more common to negotiate. Like if you're in what's called the market, el mercado, people are always negotiating the prices. They'll tell you $5 and you're like, well, what if I get two? Can I get it for $4 a piece? It's something that we've just been ingrained in as kids, right? So here in the US, it's a little bit different. It's kind of people can kind of see it as disrespectful to negotiate the price, or they're just afraid of being told no. And it's completely fine. But the thing is that everything is negotiable. Everything, whether they say yes or no, it's like you're never going to know unless you ask. So it's very important to ask for a discounted price or lower price so that you get a better price point as far as what they're going to be selling. A tactic that's used is called anchoring. So like, for an example, let's say a house costs $500,000. That's the ARV. So what a house that's fully renovated costs, right? Now, let's say you're speaking to a homeowner and you're trying to get that at least at $400,000. You're not going to go in and tell them, hey, I want to buy your house at $400,000. You're going to anchor them at $300 as an example. You want to give them a number that's so low, that's unreasonable, that they're going to come up and try to tell you, okay, no, I can't do 300, but I can do 350. Had you started at 400,000, they probably would have been like, no, I can't do 400, I can do 450. So that anchoring method is just one method to basically devalue the property to the point where the owner psychologically thinks, wow, my house can potentially be worth so low. Let me at least try to bring it up a little bit more. So anchoring is a great tactic. The next tactic that you can use is basically it has to do with listening what the owner's motives are. So when you run your list as a wholesaler, you want to understand what the motives of what the list you're pulling is. So for an example, if you have high equity and you're pulling up houses that are over 2,000 square feet, typically these properties can be properties of families or individuals that have homes that are too large for where they are right now in life. What that means is they probably bought the house over 15 years ago with their kids, and now their kids are all grown up in college, and it's just maybe mom and dad in a 2,000 square foot home that they no longer need. So that high equity 2,000 square foot home, as an example, it could be a house that they're just looking to downsize. So by you listening to what the owners have to say, and they sometimes tell you by you just asking simple questions like, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about why you would be interested in selling? Oh, well, I want to sell because my kids just graduated college and they left the house. So now it's just me and my wife living in this 5-bedroom, 3-bathroom, 2,000 plus square foot home. We have equity, we want to downsize, and we want to move to Florida. Just by you asking questions and building a relationship with that homeowner, they're telling you basically their situation. They have a large home that they want to get rid of because they want to downsize. So that's your motive right there, and that's your selling point. Well, I can purchase this home cash, because you guys are a married couple. You don't have to pay taxes if you guys make if you guys make $500,000 in profits. Anything under that is tax free. Anything over that will be taxed. But at least they know that $500,000 won't be taxed, and they would be able to sell their home to you without paying commissions, without paying closing costs, attorney fees, having to show their home and having to go through the whole process. So you're giving them a way out of selling their home and you're resolving their problem. So half the time when people are making phone calls, especially these wholesalers, they don't realize like we're doing the homeowner a favor. You know, most of these properties that we're searching for are for distressed homeowners. So they have a problem. Your job as a cold caller is to figure out what that problem is. The problem that we do, or that most people do, is they try to just go in for the sell. It doesn't work that way. You know, they're like, oh, well, I want to buy your home. Who are you? Who's this? Why are you calling me? You know, like I start my calls with, hey, how are you? And I don't say anything until they respond. If they ask me, what do you mean? And I say, hey, how are you? And they're like, oh, I'm doing great. Then I'll reply, oh, I'm glad that you're doing great. Nice to meet you, or nice to speak to you, nice to catch you. I hope this is a good time to speak with you, but I'm glad that you're doing great, you know, just so that we start bonding as far as how each other feels. And that's really been helpful for me, building relationships with these homeowners so that we can at least establish some sort of relationship. And even if they don't want to sell me the house right then and there, we're at least having a conversation that will eventually lead to a potential sale.
Dude, that's pure gold. I love it a lot. And I really like what you're saying about anchoring too, anchoring in the price, to kind of rewind a little bit. You know, I know that in the United States, we normally, at least how I buy a lot of my deals, is just on market deals. We have realtors, right? But even finding a realtor who understands anchoring. And I don't know if you've read this book called Never Split the Difference. It's by,
I've heard.
Yeah, I forget exactly the guy, that Chris Voss. And he talks about that extreme price anchoring. When you put an extreme so far in one, it brings the other person closer to your number. And so I think that's a great technique. And I've even had my realtor read that book and just learn some of these techniques, because if you can't do it directly, sometimes that psychology can be transmitted through your realtor to their realtor to them, and I think that's really, really, really key. So, man, one of the things I admire about you is you're skilled at a lot of different things. And so I've got, just 3 or 4 really, really important topics. I mean, these topics are just really, right now, I feel like it's harder to find properties. Interest rates are up. And so, these deals it's like a little harder to find deals that make sense. And so, me, man, like I'm all in on the co-living game, but I also realize there's other ways to do cash flow. Now, I'm biased. I think co-living is like the best way, but like what I really want to ask you is, how are you finding, you have some experience in wholesaling and making some of these calls. And I was on an episode the other day where somebody told me he just dressed up in a tank top. He'd never done any wholesaling before, and he just went door knocking in his neighborhood, and he found the next house he was going to buy. And it was a really cool story. Jesse actually told me that story. I know you know.
Oh, Jesse. Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So how do you find off-market deals? And for someone who doesn't have a whole wholesaling business set up and all that stuff going on, what's your advice? Maybe some tips or some tricks, or even just some stories that you've been successful in of finding a deal off market and kind of locking that deal up. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have on that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely different ways, different tactics. One is through social media, letting people know, for an example, that you're interested in off market deals. The biggest problem that we have is, you all of a sudden decide in your mind, hey, I want to become a wholesaler. But it's stuck in your mind and you're doing it on your own and you're online Googling everything, but nobody else knows what you're trying to do. So really making it vocal, creating a website, a web page. It's very simple nowadays with all the technologies that we have. Creating business cards, passing those around, creating a social media account has helped as well. So I post a lot of times that I offer a finder's fee for anybody that brings me a house that I can close on. So in Massachusetts, prices, of course, are a lot higher than most of the country. So I can offer at least $5,000 per deal that I close on. So anybody that brings me a lead, and I kind of get into the details of, if you see an ugly house, or if you see a house with overgrown lawn or broken windows, or it looks trash or looks empty, vacant, let me know the address. Send me the address and I will review it. Because what happens is, a lot of the times people will go about their day and they'll see ugly houses everywhere, but they won't know what to do with it. They're just like, oh, that's an ugly house. But to me, that could be a potential gold mine, right? but they don't know what to do with it. So you kind of have to educate everybody and teach them to be like, well, I'm the go-to guy if you see an ugly house, and I'll pay you $5,000 cash if I close on the deal. So now everybody starts messaging me, hey, I found this ugly home. Sometimes it's a hit, sometimes it's a miss, but at least people are contacting me and reaching out to me and giving me the address. Then I do my due diligence, go through prop stream, skip trace the lead, and basically try to get in contact or send mailers or cold call, whatever the case may be, to try to get in contact with the homeowner of that ugly home. If I am able to close, then I will pay the individual $5,000, and I have. There's also building relationships with agents. A lot of real estate agents, they'll get access to properties off market. Homeowners will go to them first. If their property needs to be rehabbed or fixed and it's not, in marketing condition where they can just put it on the MLS, sometimes they'll have like a investors list, and you want to make sure that you are on as many investors lists as possible, because the agents are the ones getting all these deals before they hit the market. So you want to build as many relationships as you can with real estate agents so that you can go in, purchase the property, let them know that you can buy them cash. And that's a whole different segment, but for you to be that you're able to purchase them, right? And you have the capability of taking advantage of them. The next one is just building lists and doing everything manually, where you're literally pulling lists of houses that are either distressed or high equity, are vacant. There's so many different lists and so many different criterias that you can pull, like tax liens, probates. There's just a plethora of lists that you can pull, but you're basically pulling lists of homes. You're skip tracing them. Skip tracing is basically just getting the contact information of the homeowner, and then you're cold calling and making these phone calls to these homeowners directly, pitching to them that you want to purchase their home or asking them if they're interested in selling their home, and then having those conversations. Then that will either lead to a dead lead or someone who's not yet ready, but maybe in the future, or somebody who's just ready to sell and they're like super thankful that you reached out to them. So there's many different ways of you getting leads, but those are the three that I've used that have worked for me in my wholesaling.
You have such a clear way of explaining it, man. I love that. What would you role play with me, if you wouldn't mind, just a conversation you'd have with so if I'm a seller, I got a property, you call me up, like let's do that, because I don't have a ton of experience in that space. But I want to get into the off-market game, is the truth. I'd like to buy more co-living homes off market. I'd like to, I'm willing to take on a little bit bigger rehabs than I used to be willing to do. So what would you say? How does that conversation go? What does that feel like?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of just play with the flow of the individual. Just to get into the bits of it, is just building the relationship with the homeowner, right? So basically what it was is basically having an understanding of what the position the homeowner is currently in, and you want to learn about their motives, right? Asking them those questions, why are you looking to move into Florida? What's causing you to move? Why would you like to move? And then having an understanding of the condition of their property. So you want to understand, like, most of the time, like, a lot of the a lot of the rejections, or a lot of the things that they're going to tell you is, well, my home is valued at $1 million on Zillow. I'm like, okay, perfect. Well, if it's valued at for it to be valued at $1 million on Zillow, that means it's a newly renovated property, right? Most of the time, they're going to tell you, no, it's not newly renovated. I'm like, oh, okay, well, when's the last time you did your roof? When's the last time you did your electrical, plumbing, wiring, all the big ticket items, right? You want to ask them about all that. Is your kitchen brand new? Is your bathroom brand new? Most of the time, they're going to tell you no to everything. Most of the time, their kitchens are outdated. Their roof is over 20 years old. Electrical system hasn't been updated. Paint, here in Massachusetts, if it's before 1970s, then most likely has lead paint. So they don't have like a lead certificate. So you're looking for discounts, right? So you're looking to see what's wrong with their house. So you're asking them all these questions, because now that $1 million that they're asking on Zillow doesn't seem reasonable anymore. Even they'll start asking and discounting, and they're like, oh well, no, you're right. It's not newly built, but you know, it's a good bones, a good condition. Oh, great. I can
It's
offer you
another version of
700.
anchoring, right? You're anchoring them to a lower price by saying, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this?
Right, right. And that's exactly how you start making them understand that their house is not worth what they think it's worth. And Zillow is not an accurate form of comps. It's just an estimate. So really, taking down that barrier and that wall, and breaking down that $1 million and saying, well, it's not worth $1 million because it's not a brand new construction. It's an old house. It was built in the 1900s, as an example, and you just find anything that you can that's wrong with it to decrease that price point. And that's really how I really start breaking down that price.
I'm assuming you do some sort of showing. You'll go out, you'll take a look, you'll validate all of these things that they told you, and then you'll just run your numbers and make them an offer on that property. Is that kind of how this?
Yes. So if it's close enough, I can drive myself and go see it. If it's not, then I'll just hire somebody off the internet that basically can just run and go take photos, professional photos of the property. Probably like 50 to $100 you probably pay. But they're basically taking all these photos inside the property so that you can get an understanding of how the property looks like. Ideally, you want to have somebody like that has experience. I like to send like contractors, like savvy contractors that will find things that a regular person that just wants to take photos won't see. So then they'll start pointing things out, and that's how you start basically putting that file together. So that when you pitch it to like an investor, you can show them the photos too. Like, hey, we have this $750,000 house for, you know, this is what it looks like. Best offer. And then that's how you start getting into the wholesale game.
Yeah, thanks for kind of going over that at a high level. I think that's really important for people to understand, because even if they're not thinking about creating a wholesale business, knowing the basics of wholesaling can help you buy your next deal at a discount, even if it's just one deal. I mean, Jesse told us this crazy story, man. He was on and he was just like, I just threw on a tank top. I rented out the house I was living in, and I just started knocking at doors and making a joke with the neighbors. And he was like, I'm homeless because I just rented out my house and now I need another house. Would you be interested in selling your house? And so sometimes those scrappy moves get you a great deal, or that perfect house, or put 20, 30,000 in your pocket because you're able to flip it or sell it to someone else. So yeah, no, I love that. I think that's really great. I want to switch gears a little bit with you, man, because one of your superpowers that I want the listeners to kind of hear about is you have an eye for cash flow, and cash flow is king. You know, that's why we're doing this. We're doing real estate to create additional cash in our pockets. And so you kind of told me the other day when we were just chatting about some homes you bought in Ohio, I believe it was. And you were giving me some numbers, and I thought the numbers on those properties were just really amazing, is the truth. And so I'd love for you to kind of walk the listeners through kind of how you found these properties, how you got into it, and kind of what they're cash flowing. Because I really truly think that, again, while I'm on in co-living, this, what you've kind of discovered is like it's a niche. It's another niche. You know, that's small. Not everybody can do it, but you did it in a really, really cool way. So I'd love if you'd chat us through that.
Yeah, of course. So the properties that I found were the city's called Toledo, Ohio. So there's different cities around the U.S. that you can venture into, but you really want to understand the market and really zone in on the market. And you want to get to the point where you understand zip codes. Because even though, like, for example, I'm telling you Toledo, Ohio, there's certain zip codes that you want to buy and certain zip codes that you want to stay away from. So for you to understand that, you really have to start speaking to people that live in the cities. And you're building relationships with property managers and contractors. I think contractors are one of the most undervalued people, and they have like the best insight information that they can give you, as well as property managers. Real estate agents are okay, but they are limited to what they can say because they cannot discriminate against any areas. So they're not allowed to say as much as you'd want them to say, versus property managers and contractors where they basically have no filter. They can tell you as much as they want.
I remember you telling me that when we did our little live. That was a kind of a mind blowing moment for me. Was, you know, I'm big on investing where you know as well. And like, but if you don't know the area, how do you get data on that area? And you were the first one to kind of tell me like, man, call a contractor. And I was like, or a property management company. I don't know why I hadn't thought of that before, but just realizing that they have probably some of the best data and they can tell you exactly what's going on street by street because they deal with this stuff every single day. And so I think that that's a really great hack, man. I love that. So continue. I just wanted to pull that out.
To add to that, if you work with the right property managers and you interview property managers and ask them if they have experience working with other investors, if you build a good enough relationship with them, they'll tell you where their investors are also buying. So that actually happened to me, where they literally broke it down by zip code to where these investors are purchasing and developing properties in the market that I chose. So the reason why I got into the market was basically just follow the leader type of thing. I had a good friend of mine that was buying properties for 20, 30,000, and I couldn't believe it. You know, coming from Massachusetts, you can't even find a garage for $20,000, $30,000, right? So they're finding entire homes. So when he told me, you know, buying houses for 10,000, 20,000, I'm like, you show me a house for 10, 20,000, I'll fly out there right now, and you're gonna tell me nothing else. So I basically did just that. You know, I flew out there to Ohio, basically just drove around the area, really got a sense of what that market looked like. I've only been to Ohio twice in the past 3 years, by the way. The first one was to go see and believe, and then the second one was to hire the property manager for the 11 properties that we ended up buying. So basically, he broke everything down to me. You know, he's very clear as far as like what the houses were for, what the houses were selling for, how much rehab things, how much rehab houses needed, the types of the differentiation in costs. Because here, for an example, like a new roof will cost you 15 to 20,000 in Massachusetts. Ohio, it'll probably cost you anywhere between $4,000 to $6,000. So the price differentiation, you have to keep that in mind. That's why the numbers didn't really make sense to me, because I'm like, a roof is 15 grand. How is a house 15 grand? So that's kind of where I really started understanding, you know, the numbers. So how much the rehab cost would cost me to fix a home, and if the deal even made sense. Because yes, there are houses that are 10, 20,000, but they probably need 50, 60, $70,000 in repairs, and they're only worth 50, 60 grand. So it's not even worth it. So you do have to go with some knowledge of what the rehab will cost you, because not every deal is a great deal. So where we found great deals were in the houses that just needed cosmetic work, cosmetic being under $20,000 worth of repairs. So when we go and buy these properties, we make sure that they're being bought in zip codes that appraise for good values, being over 60, 70,000, and we're purchasing them 40 to 50 cents on the dollar. So we're buying them super cheap, and they don't need that much rehab. They just need either new floor, new paint, new bathroom, maybe some fixtures on the roof, but nothing major. Major being like a brand new roof, brand new foundation, anything structural you want to stay away from, brand new electrical. These things are costly. Brand new plumbing. So you want to make sure that all those things are functional. And if you're obviously not there, which we weren't, we hired a really good contractor that we had developed a good relationship with. We would pay him $75 to go to a house that we felt met our needs or met our buying criteria. He would go in, check to make sure that everything was functional. If it was, we would go ahead, purchase and rehab it. If it wasn't, then we would just pass that deal along. So the contractor was a huge played a huge role in our buying process, because they were the ones that would tell us on the spot how much more or less we would be paying in renovations for that property. So if it met that buying criteria and it didn't exceed over $20,000 in repairs, and we bought it for like 20, 30 grand, then we would go ahead and purchase the property, because we knew that for a single family home, we can get at least $1,000 in rent per month. And we knew that because, again, establishing relationships, we started calling all the local housing centers in the city and basically build relationships with them and started asking them simple questions like, hey, do you have like a sheet of, you know, how much you guys would pay for single family, multifamily apartment complex? they're more than happy to send you what they would pay. So we had an understanding of what, people in the area would pay, but then what housing centers would pay. And what housing centers would pay was almost double of what people were typically paying. Mind you, this was like after COVID, so rents did go up. There's people in Toledo paying like $300 to $500 a month for like a whole single family, and they've had it good. Now it's starting to change, and now you're starting to see prices increase. But they had it good for a while. But now that investors and other developers are coming in, now you're seeing rental prices increase. So from 2021 to now, they've gone from a single family has gone from like 700 to almost $1,000 in rent per month. So we've seen that increase. Prices of homes have also increased. This new development, General Electric, is also going to be developing a plant out there to build electrical batteries. So that's going to be huge. When other corporations are coming into a city and bringing jobs, it's a good indicator that that market's going to continue to grow. So we went through an acquisition phase where we were just purchasing as many properties as we could, to the point where, obviously we maxed out, and we wanted to make sure that we were handling everything in order. We went earlier this year to hire a property manager because we closed on 6 properties. So we have a total of 11 properties in Ohio, and we hired a property manager to basically manage those properties because we were managing it ourselves. But now we're in the phase that we want to scale, because we see the high potential growth in this particular market, and we have an understanding of the market, down to the zip code, and we have a great team: property managers, contractors, handyman, real estate agents that are searching for properties that are being sold, and we want to basically grow it, 10x it as much as we can, and take advantage of the growth, because you're literally going through this particular city, and it goes by blocks, believe it or not. Like, you'll have one block that you'll see houses like 20, 30, 40, 50 grand, and the next block will probably houses like 70 to 100,000 plus. So like it's a different market, and that's why, like, even by blocks, when I started looking at it at a higher level, I'm like, wow, like, this is how people can actually take over blocks. They buy properties, fix them up, but now they're increasing the value of the entire block. And then what does that do to the next block? When appraisers are looking for comps and they see your beautiful home that had just sold for like 70, 80 grand, now that $30,000 home that got renovated is worth 70,000 plus. So you literally have the power to control that market and to control those blocks. And when I started seeing it like that, I'm like, that's typically how things work. With gentrification, for an example, like, developers will pick certain locations, but they'll buy the hood, or they'll buy like low income areas, buy them at a discounted price, beautify them, and then boom, everybody wants to live in there, and then it increases the price. But they've bought all these properties at such discounted price that they're basically bringing value. They're forcing appreciation into their own projects, and that concept blew me away, because now I'm looking at properties here that are like pennies on the dollar, and you can, afford, well, what I think you can afford to buy them, because where in the US are you really going to find properties under 50 grand? It's really difficult.
Man, there's so much wisdom and goodness in what you're saying. I just feel like you're dropping the gold. The first thing that I want the listeners to really take away is that, when most people see a bad property, when most people see something run down, you see opportunity. And it was funny today. I took my builder to a piece of land, and I didn't know. I know Charlotte really well, but evidently this one intersection that I took him to, he said this is like one of the worst intersections in the entire Charlotte. He's like, this is called Hidden Valley. He's like, Google it. I'm like, well, damn, if you have to Google it, I'm sure it's not that good. He's like, yeah. But then we were chatting about it, and he was like, honestly, there are developments coming here. If you take this piece of land, you develop it, like, maybe there's an opportunity. And so just this idea of like training your brain, instead of going and seeing a rundown house, or instead of seeing, for me, when I go in and see a really boxy house, I see bedrooms, I see more cash flow. and seeing opportunity. It's just a mindset shift, what you see shift. It's a vision shift that I think is really, really, really important. So that's great. I also really love, because I get a lot of people that will ask me, how do I invest out of state? What does it look like to invest out of state? Do I have to invest where I live? And I think there's kind of three things that you said are really, really important that I want people to understand. You said you were able to invest, hundreds of miles away from where you are, and you've only been there twice, really for three reasons. And I want if you want to add anything to this, please feel free to add to it. But like you said, number one, I have a team. And I would add, you have a team that you trust, that you know, that you like, and that's key. The second thing you said is you have understanding. You understand the area, because each market is different. And so you had a friend, I'm assuming, that you trusted. I think you said it was a friend who kind of first told you about this. And so having that person that you fully trust, that was my third thing, was just that trust, right? And like you said earlier, it's an area that you see is growing. It's an area that you see is expanding, and it's an area that you see some corporations coming into. It's got some positive growth to it is the other key. But if somebody can, find that team in that area that they trust, have a good understanding of the area, hopefully through someone they know, like, and trust, have that trust, and then also know that it's an expanding area, you can invest anywhere in the United States. You can invest anywhere in the world with those elements. Is there anything else I'm missing? What else would you say is important to someone who wants to invest out of state but maybe doesn't know how?
I mean, it's the education piece. You really need to be educated. It's, and trust will only take you so far, because I've also had situations where I trusted an individual with money, like a private, like lending my money, and because I trusted them too much, it didn't work in my favor, right? So having the education, but then making sure that the numbers make sense. Out of state, for an example. Example being, have a deal analyzer, a deal calculator, whether you go on Bigger Pockets or you have a mastermind where they give you like these rental calculators. You want to make sure that you have an understanding of the numbers and make sure that those numbers are accurate, because anybody can tell you like, hey, this market is great, it's blowing up, okay, great, show me the numbers. You want the transparency, you want to see the data. So my friend, we did have trust, but we also had numbers that backed up that trust. So I was able to see, the returns, the investments, the whole analysis of an actual deal and what that really looks like. Understanding, the vacancy, keeping in mind vacancy rates, capital expenditures, all the costs that go into it, the insurance. You want to have an understanding of taxes, and then the state as a whole. One of the main reasons why I got into Ohio was because of the research that I was doing. It's a landlord-friendly state, and I'm so used to being in a tenant-friendly state in Massachusetts. It takes 3 to 6 months to kick somebody out, or here if they don't pay. And in Ohio, it takes 30 days to get somebody out, and that's something that the tenants are really afraid of, being kicked out. So they pay on time, and then having that understanding of what the state looks like, and then the taxes. Here you're paying like ten to $12,000 a year for certain properties, even more. Over there, the properties were probably paying under $1,500 a year. So the taxes is also beneficial out there as well. So looking at all these different factors, but really educating yourself, because I don't want the listeners to just be like, oh, well, Roberto just met this guy and he trusted him and you gave him their money and he had a great experience. No, like, I educated myself as well. I did my own due diligence, my research. I asked my mentors, asked for their opinions, their insight. And at the end of the day, you take all that information, and if it makes sense for you to take that risk, because there's no investment that doesn't come with a risk, but it's calculated risk at that point. If you feel confident in taking that calculated risk out of state, then by all means. And start with one property. Don't go buying 10, 12 at a time. Start with one. That's what we did. We started with one, went with two, went with three, four. We ended up finding a deal that we were able to buy 6, and we ended up with a portfolio of 11, and we still want to continue to grow. Now there are different challenges, of course, not just, oh, we make, X amount in cash flow and that's it. Like, we do have our challenges. There are areas, these are areas that aren't as the safe. We've had houses that are broken into. We've had situations where tenants aren't paying. We've had situations where we see vacancy, but it's all a learning process, and you're tackling and building systems. That's why we hired the property managers to tackle on all those challenges and overcome them, because as you're growing and as you're scaling, you're going to be dealing with issues, but you want to mitigate those issues or be proactive and not reactive to them as much as possible so that you can have a better investment and a better return. So the education aspect of it is very important
I
before
love
you
that.
get into anything new.
Don't just jump into something, trust, but verify,
Verify.
Yeah, I love that. So let's talk, speaking of returns, you buy a house for 20K, you put 20K into it, you're 40K into this property. What are these renting for in this area? I meant to ask you that earlier, so kind of circling back around to that.
So we found out that duplexes are actually better returns. So single families, we try to get them at least 3 to 4 bedrooms, 1 to 2 bathrooms. Those can rent for upwards of $1,000 a month with housing programs. Without housing programs, you'd probably get away with like 850, 900, give or take. There's still,
So
there's
guys,
still
just so everybody understands, that's like, so you're $40,000 into a property. Let's even say $50,000 for round numbers. You're 50K into a property and you're renting it for $1,000. That's 2%. So you're renting a home for 2% of what it costs monthly. That's huge.
It's major. And the duplexes.
And Roberto, I'll say this. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I'll say this. I was on a podcast with Brandon Turner not too long ago, and he was saying that the 1% rule is dead. So which means like, I think you and I were even chatting about this on our Instagram live of like, hey, so what I want people to understand is that, look, for big time investors, yeah, but that, it might be hard because they're not going to do maybe that extra work or that extra research that you did. They just want to put some money in something and get a return, right? But if you're willing to be a little scrappier, if you're willing to do that research, if you're willing to kind of find and get creative, which is, Roberto, what you and I have both done. I got creative with co-living. Now it's taking off. You've gotten creative with these niche properties in this niche market that you understand. You can find, even within this grand big thing called real estate, everybody can find a little something that makes them that additional return, which when you're first starting out or you're just building up to financial freedom, man, that amount of money makes all the difference. Going from something that's, giving you 0.5% every month, renting it for, to 2% is a huge, huge, huge difference.
Big difference. And honestly, I mean, maybe I got lucky, maybe I just had the right conversations with the right people at the right time, but it's something that if you can find it and exploit it, I mean, by all means. I'm sure there's other markets in other cities that we probably never even heard of. It's like we only hear about the major cities. We don't hear about these little towns. And, that's why really having communications and, speaking about what your goals are and then being in the right rooms with the right people, you really want to explore. Because I'm from Boston. Like, who would have ever imagined me in Toledo, Ohio, which is a very specific city. It's not like it's Columbus, Ohio, where it's like known, right? It's a very specific city. So I was in the right place at the right time, just having the right conversations with the right people. And that's also very important. The more people and the more conversations you have, like, you never know what types of opportunities you're going to find. So that's huge, yeah. And then to your point, just the duplexes, I forgot. The duplexes, they go for $700 to $800 per floor. So we bought a duplex for like $440,000. I think we put $10,000 into it, all in 50. But it's renting for anywhere between $1,400 to $1,600 a month. So those duplexes are even better. So it's like we're looking now more for duplexes.
That's great.
And four bedroom single family homes out there. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, man, I love what you're bringing here. As we wrap up, I'd like to just kind of touch on one more subject with you that I think would be really valuable for people to understand. And I want you to put yourself in the shoes of someone, maybe they're trying to buy their first, their second, their third or fourth deal. I mean, they're 1 to 4 deals. They do not have enough capital for their next deal. And what you started off this podcast talking about was this property you bought in Puerto Rico where you just raised almost $250,000 for through an equity partnership. And so I know a lot of this comes down to relationships, but I really love for you to just give your advice to someone who, like, I get people, all the time. Hey, I want to buy a co-living property. I don't have enough money for a down payment. And there's all kinds of hacks for that, right? They can get a primary residence loan and live in it for a year, or they can get a second home loan maybe and live in it for a certain period of time out of the year. There's little hacks, but what if they just want to go out? They've got some friends or some family members with some money. How can someone raise capital for their first or second deal?
I think it all comes down to finding the deal then. They need to find the deal, but they need to be very educated and experienced in what they're doing, right? So for me to raise over $250,000, like I can't even tell you that I was afraid, because I wasn't. I was so confident in that deal, and I had so many different exit strategies in case for any reason the Airbnb didn't work out. I had 3 different exit strategies that would protect my investors in the deal. I understood the deal so well and the analysis so well that to me it was like, it's stupid if you don't invest in this deal, because there's a lot of potential on the upside for you to make good returns. And there's 3 different exit strategies in case that one strategy doesn't work for Airbnb. So to that point is, you really want to have a full understanding of what you're doing in the co-living space and what the deal can bring, because the money will come. Like, I didn't believe it at first. Like, they were like, oh, you find the deal and the money comes, but it's true. Like, people have money. Like, there's thousands of people, especially now, like with the houses increasing in value, a lot of people are sitting on tons of equity, and they don't know what to do with the equity, or they don't even know how to access the equity. So there's a lot of money out there in circulation, and a lot of investors that want to make money. People want money, and the savvy investor wants to make money work for them. So the money is going to be there. It's the deal. Once you find the deal, focus on finding the deal and learning how to present that deal in terms of an investor. You want to know what the investor is looking for, what the ROI is, what the cash on cash return is going to be. What the debt schedule is going to look like. You need to understand what your deal looks like full circle, so that you can pitch it to somebody with money, because that person with money, you're not asking them for money. You're presenting to them an opportunity to make money. So if you have an opportunity that makes somebody money, why wouldn't somebody want to invest in you and your deal? So to me, it's like, it's no longer me trying to find the money. The money's there. So to me now, it's understanding a good deal when I see one, locking it up, putting it on the contract, pitching it to people that have the money, and then moving forward with that deal, because my goal is to make my investors a good return on their money.
That's awesome. That's a great way to think about it, man. So just out of curiosity, if you don't mind me asking this, what was your deal? So you said, when you pitched the Puerto Rico deal, you initially just tried to get people to put down, like, give you a hard money loan, and they actually wanted to be owners in this deal. What kind of structure did you create for them that was a win for them and a win for you, where they could actually be owners in the deal?
So it was an all cash play. So we bought the property all cash. We're all in for about $285,000. As I told you, the property appraised for roughly 180 at the time, but it has 2 parcels of land. So the thing about that is that now I'm investing $85,000 into the property. I'm adding value to the property. So I'm anticipating the property to be worth at least well over $250,000. So that the funding that came in, the goal is to do a cash out refi and basically pull that money back out, return it to the investors, and then now whatever comes in for the Airbnb is now going to be paid in perpetuity to these investors. So one investor, for an example, has 37.5% equity, another one has 25% equity. So whatever the net cash flow of the property is, they're going to be seeing that money every single month or every quarter, whatever we decide on, as far as what they're going to be making in returns. So their money not only gets returned back, but now they're also making money on the back end every single month. And then to add to that, not only are we anticipating anywhere between $6,000 to $10,000 um, in gross revenue per month on this particular Airbnb deal based off a whole analysis that we did on Price Labs. But because I told you that it sits on 2 acres of land, we have the opportunity to build an entire Airbnb community, which I'm already in the process of doing as far as getting like shipping container homes built out. So we can get at least 3 shipping container homes built minimum on that particular 1 acre of land. And you're looking at least $250 per night per shipping container. I do my numbers very conservative. So even at a 65% occupancy, you're looking at anywhere between another $6,000 to $15,000 a month in just those shipping container homes. So the deal, it was honestly, it just made sense to do. And then
So you didn't have to
yeah,
you didn't have to put any of your money in. That was what was in it for you, but you found the deal and then you retained.
yes.
What percentage did you retain?
I retained the same 37.5%. So I'm actually doing the I'm managing the acquisitions. I'm managing the rehabs. I'm flying out to Puerto Rico. I'm taking care of the cash out refi. I'm basically handling everything. I'm managing the Airbnb. So I'm doing all this and putting the whole deal together. And my point was basically, look, I'm basically borrowing the money, working on giving it back to you through the cash out refi. For any reason it doesn't appraise for the amount said to pay you back in full, then we'll do a monthly payment plan to make sure that you get paid back. Once you get paid back in full, then we can continue on and move forward with the regular distributions. But that was how I structured it creatively to make that deal work.
I really love it, and I hope the listeners, as we wrap up here, I hope the listeners kind of take this away. I mean, one of the things I feel like my dad taught me really well growing up was to put myself in the shoes of, every party in a deal. So like if I put myself in your shoes, I'm thinking like, yeah, you're going to put all the work up. That's a great value add to the investors. You found the deal. They wouldn't have even been able to invest in it if you hadn't found it. Negotiated with this guy for a year. And so you're getting 37.5%, but you're not having to put any money of your own in it. So that's a huge win for you. And you get to keep 37.5%. These other investors, if I put myself in their shoes, they get to leverage your knowledge, your strength, everything you know about this deal, the Airbnb. They get to be pretty hands-off investors, get cashed out and maintain ownership in this asset that you're going to manage or that you and your team will manage. I think it's truly looking at situations and trying to find win-wins, just like you've described. That's how you can put creative deals together. And so you're winning because you're not having to put a ton of cash into it or any cash into it. They're winning because they just get to put cash into it, nothing else. And so I really love it, man. I think you nailed that one out of the park. I can't wait to rent it on Airbnb.
Can't wait to have it, man. It'll be ready for you.
Let's throw a party there when it gets ready. I need some more reasons to come to Puerto Rico. But well, brother, you've dropped tons of value today. Thank you for bringing your wisdom. And it's just cool to see how far you've come in real estate and all that you're learning. I just want to say a big thank you to you. So if someone wants to reach out to you or wants to pick your brain or wants to stay at your Airbnb, how do they get in touch with you, my brother?
Yeah, so they can follow me at Roberto Green Jr. on Instagram or at Home Cash Buyers. I also have a website, homecashbuyersacademy.com. I do teach people how to fix and flip properties. So there's actually a course there that they can buy, or they can get one-on-one mentorship with me. And I basically walk them from start to finish, how to find the deal, how to fund the deal, how to fix the deal, and how to flip the deal, so that they can learn how to fix and flip properties if they're looking to get into that. Into that. If they want to get into wholesaling, there's also a segment for wholesaling as well, so they can learn how to wholesale properties as well. But again, I'm always welcome people to come have communications with me. I'm an open book. I don't hide anything. I love sharing information. I love learning. So to me, it works both ways. I learn from everybody a little bit, and I give as much as I can to help people progress. So I appreciate that, man. Appreciate your time. Thank you for having me.
That's what we had you on, is because you are a go-giver. You're always out there to give, and that's really beautiful. And not only that, man, it's like, you are the real deal. And I know people will take that away, but there's a lot of gurus out there teaching courses and things that haven't done a deal recently at all, but they're out there teaching. And so for you to be out there hustling, making deals happen, and then bringing that back to your students, that's where the real gems are, my brother. So thanks for doing what you do.
Thank you, Sam. Appreciate you.
All right. What did you think? Wasn't that awesome? I thought it was great. I had a lot of fun with this episode. Roberto is the real deal. He's doing it. He's out there making deals happen every day. Highly recommend him and his training and his coaching. Please share this episode with someone that you think it might give that little bump to start that journey to financial independence. And just remember, financial independence truly is a journey. And we're out here just providing this content to educate the world that this is possible and that you can take these steps towards financial dependence through real estate, because, we all believe real estate's the best vehicle out there. Well, I sure do. And I hope you do as well if you've been listening to our episodes. Enjoy, and we'll see you guys soon.